When I was 10, I used to play a late-night game of flashlight tag with a bunch of neighborhood kids. If you don't know what flashlight tag is, it's the same as normal tag, but you play it in the dark and the person who's it gets a flashlight, and they have to yell the name of the person they see with it in order to tag them. It was really cloudy that night and most people had their curtains drawn, so it was the perfect level of darkness for hiding in. The side of the street my house was on was skirted by a broad length of woods. That was basically the boundary for a game. You could run through any yard, even go across the street and run through their yards, but you weren't allowed to hide in the woods because it was too difficult to find anyone in there, and it was really easy to trip over tree limbs or end up with poison oak. Of course, this rule was frequently and flagrantly ignored when people got too close to being caught. They'd duck off in the bushes for a few seconds, so they'd run behind a group of trees to evade. I don't remember who was it at the time, but I was hiding in a backyard 2 houses down from mine. The family that lived there had a little playhouse with their daughter, a swing set, and doggy house, but they didn't have a dog. I would periodically duck into the doghouse whenever I saw the flashlight searching. Those of us trying to hide from the it person like to spook each other in the dark by jumping out of nowhere and making each other scream, giving away their position. I thought I knew where the it guy was, but I kinda got comfortable hanging out on the swing set. Suddenly, a person with a flashlight came around the corner of the house, and they angled it almost directly on me. I jumped up and ran for the edge of the woods. When I got there, I hovered in case they saw me and were going to yell at me for cheating. The beam of light seemed to explore the swing set where I was. Then it came in my direction, but there was no sense of hurry at all to it, and I wondered for a second if maybe he had attracted the attention of the homeowner. Most people on the block knew we were out playing flashlight tag, but you can never be sure that someone won't get nervous if you stay in their yard too long. So I crouched down in the grass and waited to see who it was. They shined the light right in my face, and I tried to cover it with my hand to avoid identification. The creepy thing was, they never said anything, they just shined the light on me. "You got me," I exclaimed, hoping it was a homeowner, and that they'd realize I was just playing flashlight tag. Then I realized that 2 houses down, people were yelling, and there was the it guy's flashlight beam chasing them around. I stood up and I tried to see who was shining light on me. They just stood there, not moving, not saying anything. I felt a little freaked out. "If you don't want us playing in your yard, I'll go tell them it's off limits, okay?" The person started to walk towards me. It didn't feel right, so I started walking towards the edge of the yard. The person just kept shining the light on me and started coming towards me. So I ran. I looked back. The person with the flashlight was running too, and they were an adult, much bigger and much faster than me. I felt scared. I wasn't sure why this person was chasing me. I was running towards where the other kids had been, but they were gone now. It just seemed to be me and the person with the flashlight. So I turned and ducked in the woods. I dropped to the ground, shaking bushes and trying to confuse the person. Then I shimmied under a ring of thick bushes, and I curled up. I could see the flashlight in the woods with me, looking around. I could hear the person's footsteps breaking sticks and crunching on pine needles. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I just wanted to get back to all the other kids. Eventually the flashlight wandered deeper into the woods, and I crawled out, quiet as a mouse, back to the edge of the trees, and I got up and ran towards the street. I was immediately caught by the person who was it, but I just didn't care. He yelled loud that I was now it, and I tried to tell him there was someone else with a flashlight wandering around the woods. But he took off into the dark yelling, "No tagbacks." "Don't go into the woods!" I yelled, but nobody responded. Of course, anyone who heard me would just assume I was talking about not cheating at the game, but I was sincerely worried about the person wandering around in there. Of course, now I had a flashlight of my own, so I thought, maybe I should go and see if I can find out who it was, just to make myself feel better. I went back around the house I'd come from, and a bunch of laughing shadows scampered out of sight into neighboring yards. I ignored them and headed straight for the trees. I couldn't see any other light in there anymore, so I thought maybe they went home. I didn't know if it was a man or a woman, but I don't imagine any women trudging around in the woods at night. So I went back to playing the game again. A bit nervously, because of the lingering thought that there was someone wandering in the woods who didn't seem to be playing the game with us. I ran across the street and chased people through the backyards there, but after a while I found the lots empty and realized they must have gone back across the street. I ran back over and was exploring the beach's backyard. Mrs. Beach had a clothesline with a bunch of drying sheets on it, and her daughter Charlotte, she liked to hide among the linens and stayed close to home in case she got too scared of the dark. She was only a year younger than me. I thought I heard something in the tree line, so I went over and was waving the flashlight around in the woods. "Stay out of the woods," I remember yelling. I waved the flashlight back and forth a couple more passes. Then I saw someone off in the distance. I held the light on whoever it was. They were about half a jog into the woods, hard to make out, but it kinda looked like Charlotte. Charlotte had brown hair that her mother insisted on keeping shoulder length. We always dressed dark for flashlight tag, and Charlotte liked to wear this deep purple sweatshirt, so it was usually easy to tell when you found her. "Charlotte, I see you!" I yelled. She just stood there. I continued to hold the light on her and call her name, but she didn't seem to move. She seemed partially obscured by a tree and looked at me. The distance between us was enough that I couldn't see if she was blinking or not, but she had her head propped up at an angle like she was looking around the trunk at me, her mouth hanging open slightly. Every now and then she sorta twitched or squirmed. It was a really freaky movement. "Charlotte, come out here," I yelled. "Everybody, Charlotte's it, but she won't come out of the woods." Some kids, including my friend Dustin, appeared behind me and started joining in my yell for Charlotte to come out. "Do you see her?" I asked. "Yeah, she's over there behind that tree. Charlotte, get out here." Dustin said, but she wouldn't come. "Charlotte, are you okay? Get over here, idiot." Charlotte seemed to stand up straighter and then disappeared behind the tree. We could hear a movement, but it seemed to be going away rather than coming towards us. Dustin started shouting Charlotte's name again and trudging into the woods after her, but I grabbed him and gave the flashlight to take with him. I was scared again, because this all seemed surreal. I went to Charlotte's house and knocked until her father answered. "Mr. Beach, Charlotte won't come out of the woods, and I'm really worried about her," I told him. I wasn't sure if he'd take me seriously, but he rolled up his newspaper and disappeared in the closet behind the door for a moment, before returning with a huge flashlight strapped to a car battery. "Show me where she is," he told me, so I led him to the woods and pointed where I'd seen her. "She was right there," I said, "by a tree, but she wouldn't come out. And she was acting like she was sick or something." A bunch of the other kids kept calling, "Charlotte, Charlotte!" And I could see Dustin's flashlight beam moving around the trees. Mr. Beach went in after him. They explored the woods for a good 15 to 20 minutes, and Mr. Beach started getting really angry. We could hear him yelling for Charlotte very loudly, threatening her with all sorts of punishments if she didn't get her ass back into the backyard that instant. The game was over by now, and we just stood there in the Beach's backyard among the linens and watched. Dustin came running back out of the bushes with a dead flashlight. Eventually, Mr. Beach came back out of the woods too. "Game over, kids," he said. "Get inside, ask your folks if they can help me, and bring more flashlights." We all ran back home. My dad went out with 3 different flashlights. My mom went and turned on all the lights in the back rooms and opened the curtains and shades to help illuminate the backyard. I sat on the couch, upset, and she eventually came and hugged me and sat with me while I told her all about the person with the flashlight chasing me, and how I thought maybe Charlotte had run into him. Mr. Beach had gone back inside and called them to report a missing child. They brought huge lights and did a march through the woods, checking very thoroughly. But they couldn't find her. My mother told my dad what I'd told her, and he told an officer, and I ended up having to give a statement. They went into the house 3 doors down and knocked, but the folks that lived there had been asleep, and they didn't know who'd have been in their backyard. The police asked all up and down the neighborhood, but nobody claimed to know anything. The other end of the woods came to a back road mainly used by logging trucks. They found Charlotte 2 days later on the other side of the logging road, down an embankment that ended in a stream, stuffed into a drain pipe. Her neck had been broken, and she had apparently been stabbed multiple times afterwards. My parents wouldn't tell me about it. They thought it would upset me, but Dustin told me all the details at school the next day. It was the most awful thing that had ever happened in our town. The police blocked off the logging road and spent months tracking down loggers and truckers who frequently used it. There was a curfew for months, and we were told not to play flashlight tag anymore. We didn't argue. What leaves me shaking to this day is the memory of Charlotte's face hanging out from behind a tree, looking at me. Sometimes I wonder if at that moment I'd been witnessing her death. And I wonder if it had almost been me.